Hello everyone, it's your favorite switching out in space here, and it's a well-known fact that two of the biggest horror-themed RPGs out there are Call of Cthulhu and Vampire the Masquerade. Both of these are big for different reasons, but still huge and very big in popularity. So of course, me being the nerd I am, had this thought of, what if you took the two and mixed them together? Specifically, what if Call of Cthulhu characters, the investigators, had access to vampire disciplines? And that led to the different thought of which would be the best to pick, which would be the most powerful of an investigator to have, versus which wouldn't be the most powerful, or would barely be useful at all. Well, it was an interesting question I had, so this is basically the results of my findings with some logical thought experiments. Hey, it's not that weird of a video, okay? The Vampire the Masquerade was crossed over with Cyberpunk, okay? Anything is possible after that. Anyway, let's begin. Now, to kind of explain my thought process before I tell you the tier list, one, I am generally not assuming the characters are vampires, nor do they need to drink human blood in order to use these powers. Maybe it's running off magic points or something they normally have. Second of all, I am not assuming using any power in and of themselves costs sanity loss. However, I will assume that some powers will cost sanity based simply of how dark or messed up the individual power is. As another thing, I'm only counting the first 5 dots of any discipline going based off Vampire the Masquerade 20th edition for my reference points, and I will put some higher emphasis on the earlier abilities simply because those are more likely what the players are going to start with, no matter how this ends up working. And as a final bit, this tier list is based on what's the most powerful / interesting as basically my ranking system to go forward with it. There are 4 categories: Thin Blood, Neonate, Elder, and Methuselah. Going, of course, from worst to best in this nature, and we will start, of course, in Thin Blood with Animalism. Animalism is a thematic discipline, especially for vampires, but realistically, in a Call of Cthulhu sense, it's just not the greatest. I mean, it has its edge cases by getting information from animals, but realistically, it's not the greatest, especially because animals tend to stay far away from Lovecraft-type stuff for good reason. Obtenebration is next. Shadow magic is good, but half of its use involves around situations that only really scare or work on humans. Granted, some shadow-based effects and be able to turn to a shadow could be helpful, but given all the Lovecraftian geometry stuff, I just don't know if it's solid enough. Protean is next. With simple abilities like being able to see in the dark and claws and that kind of thing has some advantages, but realistically, the only true ability here I consider super useful is the simple Earth Meld ability. Even that is way more useful for vampires who need to hide from the sun sometimes. Quiet is next. Being able to turn an area quickly silent or create poisons has its uses, but a lot of the powers are just too wishy-washy to really be good, especially because there are other powers that do better things on this list. Serpents is next. Simply put, the powers aren't that great. Potentially, the hardening skin or removal of the heart could be helpful. Maybe turning into a snake could have some edge cases, but realistically, it's just not going to do that good. And last in the list is Vicissitude. Vicissitude is a scary-ass discipline that is definitely causing sanity loss every time you use it, and realistically, outside of maybe being able to disguise as another person, it's just not that solid in Call of Cthulhu. And once again, the sanity loss will be eating through you like there is no one's business. Realistically, half the use this discipline has in the actual Vampire the Masquerade is just to turn Romanians into dining chairs anyway. Next up is the Neonate tier, where abilities get a lot more useful but still fall from the cream of the crop. First up is Chemistry. Chemistry is basically creating illusions and that kind of thing. It has its uses, definitely good at fooling people, but with the simple fact that new illusions can't kill people or do true damage to them beyond knocking them out effectively, and given the fact that a lot of creatures effectively have aspects against it, including dogs, at least at first level, and eldritch abominations can probably see right through it given that nature, it's a bit too inconsistent of when it could be useful. Next up is Demontation. Simply put, being able to make someone mad or mess with emotions like that has its uses, but when dealing with a World of Call of Cthulhu Madness type situations, it's debatable how useful that could be, especially how unpredictable it can be based on certain circumstances. However, I don't think the restriction of having to have an insanity already in order to use it is going to affect you, because when you're a Call of Cthulhu investigator, you probably have more than a couple before you even found this ability. And last, the Neonate is Protence. Protence is basically super strength. There is nothing wrong with super strength. Super strength is very helpful. The problem is it's just not quite good enough because it really is just super strength. But the fact is you're going to have to get a lot of points in that ability to be able to make up for, the fact that you could be using a gun or another power on this list. Moving up is the Elder. These are the disciplines that start really getting good. They have a lot of raw power behind them and could potentially be quite powerful no matter the circumstances you use them in. First up is Dominate. Simply put, it's mind control. It's very powerful, it has a lot of abilities even at low levels. Its only real weakness is that it generally only applies to humans for the most part, and you are of course working with the fact that might be dealing with a lot of eldritch abominations that just might not work correctly. Necromancy is next, which I'm bracing this off the path of the sculpture, I can't say that anymore, right? But basically the main path, and it's basically the ability to talk and summon shades and wastes and that kind of thing. Once again, can be great for information and doing other kind of things like that. However, its main ability generally implies that you have ghosts you can work with or ghosts you can get information from, which depending on the nature of the eldritch abomination you deal with might not be an option you have. Obfuscate is next. Simply put, it's going invisible. This is an incredibly powerful ability in this kind of game. No doubt in my mind, it's easily very great. It would be top tier if it wasn't for the simple fact that a lot of things effectively would have aspects against it. Eldritch abominations might not care, given how the power obviously doesn't really make you invisible so much as it just makes people not realize you're there. This might not work very well against eldritch abominations, so it's once again a little too inconsistent to be at the toppest of tier. Next is presence. Presence is great because it just works. It doesn't matter what you're dealing with, person, animal, supernatural, or eldritch abomination, presence just works. Its only real downside compared to someone like, say, Dominate, is that, simply put, it's kind of difficult to manipulate things into the same degree. But that's really the only thing keeping it from top tier. Presence is still great. Thaumaturgy, based on the Path of Blood, which is the intermediate discipline, basically is blood magic. It has, decent abilities given the nature of, blood magic. However, due to the simple fact of its nature, it's, once again, just a little bit inconsistent based on what considered to have or not have blood, but otherwise it's still a very solid discipline given its information gathering ability as well. And here it is, boys, the top tier, the Methuselah tier of disciplines, the big boys themselves, the absolute best picks for Call of Cthulhu, starting off with Auspex. You love it, you've been hearing about it before, and it's just solid. It's the basic ability to sense the unseen, to detect auras and do that kind of thing, and even glean information from people's minds. To say this is powerful is an understatement of the century. It's incredibly good for a game about investigating and uncovering information. It can even be used to detect if someone was potentially a deep one or other eldritch creature like that. It's just a solid pick. Next up is Celerity. It's super speed, it does exactly what it says on the tin, and it's very good at it. This is especially useful in a Call of Cthulhu setting because not a lot of creatures are described as being particularly fast. I know some people will then immediately comment with insert Lovecraftian monster that's fast, but most of them are not known for their speed. And given the fact you do a lot of running in Call of Cthulhu, being able to have literal super speed to the point of having extra turns in the game is not something to scoff at. And the final ability at this discipline at this tier is Fortitude. Simply put, it makes you the big tank. There is nothing wrong with being able to soak damage, because you're in Call of Cthulhu where characters are very squishy, and being able to effectively start eating bullets at higher tiers means that you are effectively a lot hard to take out. And admittedly, if we were going up by V5 disciplines that let you have also mental fortitude with this ability, it would be even more broken. But we're going off V20 if it's just your physical discipline to take damage. Overall, that's my tier list. Those are my top picks, my listing of each discipline if a Call of Cthulhu investigator had a Vampire the Masquerade discipline. Overall, I think it's a very solid list, but I want to hear what your thoughts. Do you think it got it right? Do you think it got it wrong? Either way, like, comment, or dislike as you wish down below. And, I'd like to discuss it. Where would you put different disciplines and other topics like that? What would you like me to cover next? Overall, I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you all next time. Yeah. Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.